Hello, Duranis here, and welcome to episode 1 of Modded KSP. This is going to be a career playthrough of a modified version of Kerbal Space Program. There's a whole bunch of mods installed, which I'm going to link in the description. What I'm also going to try and do with this series is just give some general information on all of the mods, just for people that haven't used them before, even people that haven't played KSP before. So there'll be not a full-on tutorial, but quite a few sort of hints and tips for people that are completely new to the game and just haven't got a clue what's going on. So yeah, let's get going. So for those of you that haven't played KSP before, this is where you start off. You have here the tracking station. This is where you can track flights in progress, you can recover vessels, and you can terminate missions from there. You have the VAB and the launch pad. The launch pad's for rockets, that's where they take off, and the VAB's for building the rockets. You have the space plane hangar and the runway, and again, the same deal, you build planes in the hangar and use the runway to take off. You have the astronaut complex where you can hire more Kerbals, and you have the research and development area, which is where you unlock all of your technology and get your new parts from spending science. So let's have a look in there. And you can see you start off just with one node unlocked, and that gives you a list of basic parts here to get started with. And then once you gain more science points, you can unlock more nodes, and that will unlock new parts of the tech tree. And as you unlock each node, you get new parts unlocked. So the other thing here is also the science archives, and this basically keeps a log of all of the science experiments you've got, how much science you've got from that experiment, and also how much science is still remaining for that experiment. So you can check that for all the different planets, and then the moons around the different planets as well. So let's go into the VAB and start building the first rocket. Normally I won't bother doing the rocket builds and showing the launches and getting into the basic orbits. I'll sort of fast forward through them or just skip them out entirely, because sort of once you've seen it once, you've sort of seen it a few thousand times. So we'll start off here though with the command pod. I just really want to give people an idea of sort of how this works. Normally you won't have these kind of windows and these buttons up here when you're just playing vanilla KSP, but these are all parts of mods, which I'll go into a bit later, but we don't really need them for this part. So yeah, starting with the command pod, we're going to put a few fuel tanks on there. Let's go with 4 of them. And these are liquid fuel tanks, so they've got liquid fuel and oxidizer in, which is used for most rocket engines. And we only have the one rocket engine here at the moment, the liquid fuel rocket engine anyway. And we'll put that on the bottom here. And you can see if you grab these parts here, you can grab them and pull them off. But if you grab the root part, which is the part that you put on first, you can move the whole rocket around. So we'll just move that up a bit. And one thing we do need to do is add a parachute on the top so it can land safely. Then we haven't got any decouplers yet, and decouplers basically let you separate the rocket into parts, so it will, you can have a big stage here with lots of fuel tanks, and then once that's burned through, you can use a decoupler just to decouple it and lose all the mass that's in them fuel tanks. But we don't have that now, so we're just going to stick some solid fuel rocket boosters on the bottom. And let's try 4 of them, I think. Actually, let's try 5 and see if it will take off still. So yeah, on the right hand side here you have your staging, and basically when you press the spacebar it will activate the next stage. So if I just separate these up, and we'll get that all ready, go down there, thank you, and we'll put the parachute into the top stage. So we see each of these solid rocket boosters is in its own stage, so when I press the spacebar the first time it will activate this bottom stage, and then when I press the spacebar again it will activate the next, and so on all the way up. And I think that's probably about all we can do for this one, so let's launch it. So here we are at the launch pad, and we've got Lodman Kerman in the cockpit there. First thing we're going to do before we go anywhere is just get some science, so we'll right click and get a crew report, and you can see that's 1.5 science if we recover it and 1.5 science if we transmit it. Most science experiments, if you transmit it, you get less science, but for crew reports and EVAs, you can transmit for 100%. but we're going to keep that anyway, and we'll do an EVA, and we'll right click and EVA report, and that's 5.6 science, so we'll keep that. And one little trick that you might not know is normally you can only have one crew report stored in the cockpit at a time, but if you right click on it and take the data and then store the data again, it will let you do another crew report. So let's just board again and get ready to launch. So we're going to press T to turn the SAS on, and that will basically keep the rocket a bit more stable. And we're going to throttle up, even though the solid rocket boosters don't respond to throttle control, they just burn at full burn as soon as you fire them. We'll just keep the throttle up so we're ready for when we switch to the liquid fuel. And like I said before, we've not got decouplers, so basically the way we're going to decouple these is just make them explode as we go upwards. So we'll see how that goes when we get a bit higher. So it's going to be a bit slow to start with, but it should start picking up speed fairly rapidly. And once we start ditching these lower stages, it will go quite a bit faster. So you can see here, these rockets overheat by default anyway. Normally they won't overheat before the fuel runs out. But in this case, we're going to fire the next stage just about now. And that's stage lock, so that was just in time. So you can see as we fired the second stage there, it caused it to overheat more than exploded. And our Kerbal doesn't look entirely happy about the way we're making this rocket go upwards. Let's see if he gets a bit more enthusiasm once we stop making things explode under him. So all we're going to try and do is just go straight upwards until we get to about 10 kilometers, and then we'll start moving into our gravity turn. The gravity turn is basically using the planet's gravity to assist with picking up speed. So in this case we're going to move over towards the 90-degree mark because the planet is rotating in the opposite direction. So it just helps build up our relative velocity. And almost left that one too late. So yeah, in future I won't bother showing the whole ascent stage and getting into orbit, because it's more or less the same deal every time. I'll probably show it if it's going to be something that might explode or something that's particularly interesting, then I'll show it, but otherwise I might just sort of speed it up a bit and maybe skip it altogether if we've done quite a few. So coming on to our last solid fuel stage here, just getting up to 75 kilometers. Yeah, 8 kilometers now. And our surface speed, orbital speed is 340. So yeah, we're picking up speed quite nicely now. Our Kerbal's really not happy about this, but yeah. So that's the last stage we needed to explode, and we are actually quite high up, so let's tip on over and check our apoapsis. So it's over a minute away and up to 50k, so let's tip all the way over here. So what we're doing now is just really building our horizontal velocity there, and you can see the trajectory of the orbit is slowly being pushed out around the planet, and ideally we want to be about 20 seconds away from the apoapsis. So what we can do is just cut the engines there and drift up to the apoapsis a bit, and I might have to fire the engines a little bit just as we're still in the atmosphere. It's slowing us down. So you can see our speed here is slowly dropping back down because we're still within the atmosphere here. But that's not too much of a problem, so we're just going to speed up a little bit, get a bit closer to the apoapsis here. And we want this anywheres above 70 kilometers, so we'll probably push it up to about 75-ish, and then concentrate on getting the orbit in place. And one thing I want to do quickly is just do a crew report in the upper atmosphere, and an EVA report. And again, just take the data and board again to store it. And 32 seconds away from the apoapsis, so we're going to get ready to start burning again here. So yeah, coming up to 20 seconds, let's throttle up. And you can see that's starting to move away from us again and gradually going up. So we're going to push that out to about 75 kilometers, so about there, and we're just going to wait till we get a bit closer again. So you can hear the music change, so that means we're now in space. And again, about 20 seconds away, push over to the horizontal marker there, and we should see our periapsis start to come out the other side of the planet. So there we go, and we'll push that up so it's just over 70. So yeah, we're now in orbit. And a couple of notes here: the apoapsis is basically the highest point in the orbit, so that's the furthest away from the planet that you're orbiting, and the periapsis is the lowest point in the orbit. On the NavBall here, you can see this yellow mark is the prograde marker. So basically, if you're pointing at the prograde marker and you fire your engines, you're going to add speed to your orbital velocity. And if we flip around here and look on the other side, we've got the other yellow marker which has the cross through it. That's the retrograde marker, and basically if you point at this and burn your engines, you're going to take away speed from your velocity. So if you want to slow down and decrease the size of your orbit, you burn on the retrograde, and if you want to speed up, you burn on the prograde. So it sounds complicated, but it's pretty straightforward once you've done it a few times. So what we're going to do now is just get a bit more science. So you can see we're now in space, floating around. And if we do a crew report, and crew report 1 in space near Kerbin, so we'll take that, and we'll do an EVA report, and right click, EVA report, and we get 8 science. You can see EVA report from space just above Kerbin's water. So Kerbin, the Moon and Minmus all have things called biomes, which are basically different areas on the planet, and you can basically do an experiment in each of these areas and get points for it. All the other planets, you can only perform the experiment once. So for example, if you took a mystery goo to Juno, you can only do it once while landed on the planet, whereas if you took it to Minmus, there's I think 12 different biomes you could do that experiment in. So you can get quite a lot of science from the Moon and Minmus, so you don't have to go too far out to get a whole bunch of science. So we're going to collect that, and we're just going to store it, and we'll take the crew report again and just store it all. And what we're going to do now, because there's lots of biomes we're going to be floating over, is just use the physics warp and just basically warp around the planet and try and collect EVA reports from above all of the biomes. So you can see we're still over the water here, so we'll just reset that, and we'll move on a bit further and hopefully get over some land. So EVA report over the shores, so we'll keep that and then store it, and back over the water again. So we should be able to get 4 or 5 different EVA reports here. So that's one from the grassland, so we'll keep that and store the experiments. And over the highlands, so we'll keep that and store that in the command pod. And let's try another one here. So back over the water, so we've already got that. And the lights here in the clouds you can see is part of the City Lights and Clouds mod, I think it's called. There'll be a link in the description for it anyway, but basically that makes all the planets look so much prettier. It does some really nice effects, and the cloud cover looks amazing. So you see the moon over there, that's where we're going to be heading very soon. So all I'm going to do now is just sort of float around here and where's he going? Float around here, collecting EVA reports as we go. I think we've already got the Highlands. Nope, we haven't got that one, so that's good. So yeah, I'll be back when we're ready to deorbit and land again. So we're back, and we managed to get 11 lots of experiments done, so that's quite a lot of science that we've managed to pick up there, which is not bad for a first mission. So what we're going to do now, we're pointing our retrograde marker. So let's just switch back to the map view, and we're going to burn full on the retrograde, and you can see this is shrinking back down again now, and we're going to try and aim just to land on the edge here. So hopefully once we get through the atmosphere, that's to slow us down a little bit more, and we should just end up on this little bit of land here. And although you may think that landing in the water would be a safer option, in Kerbal Space Program, water tends to like to make things explode. So although it doesn't make a lot of sense, landing on land is a lot safer than landing in water. But in this case, we should be okay either way. So I'm just going to speed it up a little bit as we come down through the atmosphere here. And our orbital speed's picking up, but that should start slowing down once we sort of hit this lower atmosphere. And once we get down to about 35 kilometers, we should start seeing the re-entry effects there. And yeah, I think we're probably going to overshoot this land and end up in the water, but no, that should be fine. Probably lose the fuel tanks, but not a massive problem. So yeah, we can see we're coming through the lower parts of the atmosphere here now, and I'm going to take us out of the time warp when we are getting ready to fire the parachutes. So let's get down to about 2,000 kilometers. Actually, that looks like it's coming up quite quickly, so maybe we won't leave it quite that long. And let's just tilt ourselves upwards. And we'll fire the parachutes now. So the parachutes fully deploy when it's 500 meters above the ground. So you can see there it deployed at around 800 meters, which means that this ground is 300 meters above sea level, because this altimeter actually just shows you the distance to sea level, not the distance to the ground that's underneath you. So don't always trust this. Sometimes this could say you've got 5 kilometers left, but if you're on a planet with a huge mountain, you could be clipping the top of it. So yeah, that was our first mission. Not too bad, and we're going to get a little bit more science here at the end. So let's just make sure we're tilting in the right way so we can get out. So we're definitely going to lose that engine at the bottom, but that's going to be okay. And dip backwards, thank you. And that's okay again, just decoupled the fuel tanks there from the command pod, but command pod's still intact, so we're all good. So let's do another crew report, and we'll keep that. And EVA report, and let's just jump off. Nice graceful dismount there. And take a surface sample, so that's 9 science. And EVA report, that's another 2.4. And let's just plant a flag to commemorate our first successful mission. So first mission landing site. Much science was had by all. So we're going to jump back in the command pod if it's going to let us. Come on. And board. And recover vessel. So yeah, it's a fairly straightforward mission, just a quick orbit round, lots of EVA reports, and just really trying to maximise the amount of science we can grab at each point. So we actually managed to pick up 92.1 science from that, which is a pretty good start. So let's just click back into our research and development. So the first thing we're going to do is obviously get this node, because there's nowhere else to go. So that's 5 science. And we're going to head down the science and survivability area, because we want to get solar panels and batteries and all the science experiments which are down here. So let's grab that, and let's grab the... yeah, we want to grab this because it's got the Science Junior. And let's see, we've got 27 points left. So let's grab the general rocketry, and that will give us some solid rocket boosters and a few more different engines there. And that leaves us 7 science left, which we can spend next time. So I'm going to call the end of the episode there. We've got lots of science from our first mission. I've sort of shown the basics of Kerbal Space Program, so in future missions I probably will skip a lot of what we've just done. So yeah, until next time, thanks for watching, take care, and see you later. Goodbye.